I'm running as a protest because we deserve fair maps and also because we don't go down without a fight. Voters deserve two choices on the ballot.
And why, perhaps, are you sort of continuing with that race? Are you hoping, perhaps, in the future you might sort of tighten the margin of loss?
I mean, it would be great to lose by less than I was projected to, I guess, but really this is a long game for us. We need to, as a state, understand what's going on with gerrymandering so that we can actually elect judges that will give us fair maps in the future. So this year, that means electing Allison Riggs, who's our state Supreme Court justice. And then we have some other state Supreme Court justices to elect in the future in order to get our fair maps back.
Kate, can you explain briefly to our audience who determines how these electoral boundaries are drawn?
Sure. So every 10 years, we do a census. Our Constitution says that every citizen in the country has to be counted. And then state lawmakers in North Carolina and in many other states in the US will then draw district maps for voting. The thing about that is that the state lawmakers that are drawing those district maps are like choosing their voters when they do that, because they're drawing the maps that are going to be used to elect them. So districts have to be about the same size, so about the same number of people in them. And then after that, there are principles of good district making, but really it's up to our state legislature to do the ethical and moral thing, and they choose not to. They choose to keep their power instead.
Speaking of power, the Supreme Court in your state did move to fix gerrymandering about 2 years ago, but flipped on that decision. Why did that happen?
Oh, man, it's because we took our eye off the ball during the November 2022 elections. So prior to those elections, our state Supreme Court said that partisan gerrymandering was unconstitutional and that voters in North Carolina deserved fair maps. And so for that November 2022 election, we had fair maps. And we sent 7 Democrats and 7 Republicans to Washington, D.C., to the House of Representatives. Awesome. North Carolina is a super purple state. That makes sense. But then in that same November election, our state Supreme Court flipped to becoming much more conservative. It went to being 5 conservative justices and 2 Democrats. And they chose, in like unprecedented fashion, to rehear the partisan gerrymandering case from just a few months earlier and flipped the decision, basically declaring that North Carolinians have a constitutional right to free elections, but not to fair elections. And so that is how we have ended up with our partisan gerrymandered maps this go round.
Of course, you've been impacted by Republican gerrymandering, but also the Democrats are equally guilty of this, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, and it's wrong no matter who does it. You can just look at a state like Illinois and see where the Democrats have drawn the lines in their favor. I mean, really, this is supposed to be about the voters. Like, we're supposed to come together and pick a person to go and represent us. And instead, what happens is we have representatives choosing their voters.
How big an impact will this have in this up-and-coming election? And it's such a huge development, and would this really impact how many seats the Democrats and the Republicans will have in the 2 houses?
Yeah, so right now in North Carolina, there are 170 state Senate and state House seats up for election. And maybe 6 or 7 of those are competitive under our current maps. And so it's really difficult to see any kind of change in the power structure. What we're really, really hoping for, though, is the Republicans currently hold what's called a supermajority, which is where they have so much of the state House and Senate that they can choose to override our governor's veto. So that's how we've gotten a lot of the extreme legislation that you all may have heard of, with like abortion bans and totally bizarre so-called like parents' Bill of Rights programs that are like anti-gay legislation. That's because our governor will veto the policies and then the supermajority will like veto his veto. So hopefully, even with just those 6 or 7 competitive seats, we can break that supermajority and at least get a little bit of negotiating power and bipartisanship back in our state legislature. You all can cross your fingers with me.
Well, We'll cross your fingers in Australia for you. But over here, we do have an independent commission that draws these boundaries without too much fuss. Is that something that you would prescribe to fix the gerrymandering problem here?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm exceptionally jealous of how you all draw your districts. It just makes a lot of sense. Why would you let the people who need to be elected by those districts, by the people in those districts, draw the districts? It's kind of like letting the players make their own rules to the game.
Of course, you are not a politician. You don't have that background. You're a working mom. How big is this movement to fix gerrymandering from a grassroots perspective?
I think people are really ready to feel like their voices and their votes matter on the state level. I mean, for sure, when you look at our statewide candidates, every single vote counts. We often have races across the state that are won by like a few hundred votes out of many millions. But folks are mad about this. Like, they want fair districts. It doesn't matter what party you're in. Everyone is affected by gerrymandering. Even if you're a Republican in a safe Republican district, you feel ignored by your state representative because that representative's incentive is to listen to map makers in order to keep their job, not to listen to you as the voter.
Do you feel like you're being ignored by your president, Joe Biden, and the Democrats' candidate, Kamala Harris?
Oh my gosh, no. On the presidential level, like, there's no gerrymandering. It's our big state or our big country. The electoral college system, which is like a whole different discussion, is kind of a can of worms, and we would be better off, in my opinion, without it. But North Carolina is a swing state. We have seen Joe come through and Kamala come through. Barack Obama is coming this weekend. I mean, we are like getting so much attention right now. In some ways, I think, like, from a traffic perspective, it might be all right if they ignored us a little bit more.
And you think that you will be losing this race in District 37 in North Carolina, but beyond this election, will you continue in future ones?
What I would like to do, and we're working to put together a team to do this, is to launch something called the Can't Win Victory Fund. And we are basically going to help candidates run in gerrymandered districts across the state and hopefully eventually across the nation, and really build this movement so that everyone understands as a voter what they should expect from their elected officials, and then can compare that to what they're actually getting, hopefully building some momentum for change.
And how long do you think you're going to take before you can change that slogan that's on a T-shirt that would ultimately say ungerrymandered?
So we get our new maps in 2030. That's when the next census happens. And in order to have fair maps at that point in North Carolina, we have to put Allison Riggs on the state Supreme Court this year. We have to reelect Justice Anita Earls in 2 years. And then we have to take 3 more seats in 2028. So it's all through the judicial races right now for us. And that is where I will be spending a lot of my time.
And finally, what would you say to other candidates in your position who are thinking of running for seats that are certain to go in the one direction because of gerrymandering?
Do it anyway. This is a blast, first. Second, I've learned more about how our political system works from running for office than I ever could in any other way. And then third, like, give voters a choice. It's so empowering. It feels great to do.
Okay, Kate Barr, it's been lovely to speak to you, and good luck with your campaign. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.